Hey guys, welcome back to another Water Fair. Today we're doing part 4 to what if Naruto became Kaguya. If you want to know what happened in the last part, then there'll be a link in the description down below, which will take you to a playlist where you can watch all the previous parts in order, and plus any other future part that gets added into this series. Or you can wait until the end of this what if to click on the end screen cards as the one in the top left hand corner will be the playlist for this series. Anyway, with that out of the way, some of you are also going to somewhat notice that I'm louder, and I've pretty much just turned up the volume on my mic. So yeah, if I sound loud to use, turn your volume down, and yeah, hopefully you'll be able to hear me a lot clearer now. And yeah, the only thing I may end up doing is moving the distance between my mic and my mouth, obviously, to give potential, obviously, better clarity. Anyway, with that stuff out of the way, let's actually get into this. So, yes, as the time would somewhat, of course, go by, Naruto, or at least they would eventually end up arriving at the first town in which, of course, in this timeline, of course, Dry would end up, giving Naruto the water balloons once they'd leave, though this time around he'd be giving Naruto the rubber balloons instead, not rubber balloons, rubber balls, as it would be it'd be a step further. Yeah, Jared obviously tell him to pretty much try and pop this, and that he could obviously only pop it with his chakra, as Jared show him, and yeah, from there, of course, days would go by, and Naruto would kind of, he'd end up realizing that it would obviously need a lot more power, which meant it had to have a lot less kind of layers in it, so it would be less destructively powerful, but it would be more rotationally powerful. But he'd also end up realizing that he would have to do a balance. And yeah, because he could only make it so, he could only somewhat, make it so fast before, he could make it spin around as, like so incredibly fast. But it'd be, it probably wouldn't even pop because there's not enough layers to actually cause it to pop. So, yeah. And once he was also somewhat doing that, Naruto would end up kind of also doing a slightly altered version. This version is somewhat similar, but unlike where the Rasengan pretty much had them just like where they pretty much kind of just narrowly missed them, Naruto kind of space or at least have them in such a way that the gaps between them were slightly wider, but also everything was rotating in the somewhat similarly in the same direction instead of the somewhat how Dry wanted him to do, which was just chaotic inside. So one could be rotating clockwise, then somewhat, or at least one load be rotating clockwise and then anti-clockwise, and yeah, you'd create just a chaotic mess within the Rasengan. Of course, that's what it meant to do, to allow it to have its kind of drilling potential. Yeah. Anyway, now to have them all kind of spinning in a somewhat the same direction, but with a bed, like the literal kind of chakra layers, which would be of course rapidly spinning, would narrowly miss one another, seemingly, and that'd be as much as he could potentially put with it being of course high speed. though even though he'd try it, he wouldn't get it to pop, and so he'd end up eventually kind of reverting back to that version without ever really kind of telling Jiraiya about it, or at least that was his plan to. But Jiraiya, or at least as they'd end up coming across, they would of course eventually end up coming across, or at least the point in time where Kisame and Itachi had came after them, so they'd already had infiltrated Konoha, put Kakashi I'd put Kakashi under the Genjutsu. Anyway, so of course that thing would, well, it would actually happen the same. It would have a similar it would have the exact same outcome, but pretty much Naruto would end up, or at least when he'd hear a knock at the door, he'd momentarily think, probably say the dryer was back, but they would get an inkling that it wasn't dry, so he'd end up actually kind of making a shadow clone. That shadow clone would go to open the door, and he would jump out of the window, shutting it to obviously make it look like how he originally had it. And he'd be running kind of away, trying to potentially find Jiraiya, and Jiraiya would be running towards the pretty much the hotel. Yeah, though Naruto wouldn't get far when he'd end up literally hearing the faint sounds of Itachi, and he'd hear and he'd know that tone, that voice. It was Sasuke, and he'd cuss, he'd do a 180 and run back. And though both Naruto and Jiraiya would actually kind of seemingly almost comically arrive at the exact same time, not exactly, but close enough to pretty much be exact, nearly. Anyway, though both Kisame and Itachi would be kind of surprised at the fact that those two Narutos, though the Naruto that he'd left there would go up in smoke, which would surprise the two, as of course Itachi, of course Kisame had high somewhat trust in Itachi, and Itachi had kind of examined him with the Sharingan, and had deemed the Naruto in front of them, the Shadow Clone, the real Naruto, which Naruto had managed to fall the Sharingan. So anyway, though besides from that, obviously guys kind of walloping of Jiraiya accidentally, and with though because it would end up telling that about obviously Kakashi's status, and that they'd kind of really need Tsunade, and Jiraiya just nod, and of course Naruto would end up promising that they would kind of bring her back, even if they had to bring her back kicking and screaming, which Jiraiya would somewhat kind of chuckle, as he'd probably amuse that even if she somehow ended up agreeing, she'd probably still be moaning, somewhat all the way there. So Naruto wasn't in a way too far off what could potentially be reality. And though of course it'd be a day or so somewhat later, while Jiraiya would be kind of somewhat watching Naruto, and though Naruto, or at least for the past kind of couple of days, had managed to kind of pierce the blue, not pop it, but kind of create a small hole in it, and it was kind of frustrating him somewhat, though he knew that being frustrated would just make it harder. Though Jiraiya would end up coming to him and would tell him that or at least that would be somewhat enough today, though now to shake his head, saying that he could do just one more. Tried to say, though he'd end up kind of remembering and known since then he did get did, of course, get somewhat better in chakra control, so he would end up kind of turning drier of that he did always try a different way, but it didn't really work. But maybe some more reason right now. I'd be somewhat curious though. He not only time to kind of use that as he was, right there, and he was fast enough that if Naruto somehow, caused massive damage to his hand, arm, whatever, he'd be able to get them to to a hospital relatively quickly. And yeah, Naruto would somewhat do so, and yeah, though it would seemingly be, he would see it though dry, he would see the ball actually increase in size, but not kind of all that much. Heck, it didn't even seem bumpy, though Naruto kind of trying to kind of get it to do something would actually accidentally end up causing it to kind of the very top layer, and the second layer to somewhat, or at least had accidentally kind of slightly altered them, and to such a way that the top layer slightly slowed down, but which would end up causing the to at least kind of chakra atoms or particles, whatever you'd like to call them, to kind of slam, or at least one to slam into the other, which would end up causing a kind of somewhat shockwave effect throughout the entire kind of layers of this Sangon-ish thing, and that would end up kind of causing a massive, just explosive, an explosive amount of energy to go outwards, causing it to, not pop but explode, causing Naruto to be flung backwards. Dry, who was somewhat close to Naruto, would be flung backwards as well. Well, not really flung, but he would definitely be moved backwards some bit, and he'd be kind of shocked at the sheer force of that, though he'd end up kind of running and he'd manage to actually catch Naruto before he would crash into a tree and potentially harm himself. And yeah, though he would look back and he would kind of somewhat be surprised, though he'd tell Naruto to not use that, and Naruto would nod, though he'd state that though he'd state that he didn't know kind of what happened, as the last time he tried it, he couldn't cause anything like that to happen. Tried somewhat nod, and though he could see, even though Naruto was kind of trying to hide it, there was obviously pain, so they would end up leaving it at that. And yeah, though of course time would go by and eventually they would end up finding Tsunade. Yeah, though Naruto like in Canon would still end up losing to Tsunade, though he'd end up though they would still end up making the exact same bet. Yeah, though this time around Naruto would be somewhat, of course, further along, and also he's somewhat, or at least he was currently using both his hands to form a somewhat semi-stable Rasengan. Semi-stable to the fact that it wasn't completely stabilized, meaning that it pretty much, give it some couple of seconds to a minute or so and it would blow up, or just completely destabilized. And yeah, though of course that guy managed to get in that semi-stable state, which meant he could now start trying to drill it into the tree, and of course of course as of course Suzuno would also try and obviously convince Naruto to that the necklace was cursed and that everyone's outside it died and that, and yeah, though Naruto just would call BS on that, like he did in canon. Don't think he actually said that, I'm pretty sure he didn't, but he definitely stated that it wasn't cast, or yeah, pretty much is in discourse now. I think to like just that much, just that much harder, much more, yeah. Though it'd be because it's somewhat the last any nerd would, and yeah, as you'd end up forming it, and yeah, though it. Yeah, though it'd be because knowing very much he'd probably only had maybe another go or two left before he'd be going to the hotel. Yeah, he'd put his both hands together, or at least space apart, obviously enough for the Rasengan to form, and yeah, he'd cut out. He'd focus. He'd very much put as much focus as possible with somewhat poor, or at least with with somewhat be pouring from his forehead and that, and yeah, it would end up removing his hand as that would be a formed with Sangon. He'd stay there and he'd wait a minute, then to seeing that it was stabilized, he deemed it semi-stabilized, as Dry told him that it was in a point where it wouldn't dispel, but it wouldn't cause much damage. And yeah, now to do like he had been doing to some other trees throughout the day, and it push it into the tree. This time it would end up drilling, but instead of seemingly drilling and then end up kind of drilling and then would end up destabilizing, causing a spiral, it would continue to just drill inwards, and yeah, it would end up he would actually end up cancelling the jutsu, or in other words stopping the he'd stop the film of chakra that went around the Rasengan. In other words, stopping the compression, which would cause it to something expand, which would then thus destabilize it. And yeah, he'd be surprised and he'd pull his hand right the way back through the tree, and he'd stare through it, and he'd just be somewhat panting due to just mental exhaustion, and he'd just have a smile as he'd just state that he did it finally. And yeah, though he would somewhat be panting, and he'd decide that it would be and yeah, he'd decide that he'd kind of get up as he'd end up kind of jumping, and as he'd somewhat landed he kind of went he kind of landing somewhat failed, and he just ended up on his butt being just tired. Yeah, so he'd of course go to the hotel in which they were staying in, and yeah, next day, same thing like in canon, would come, Shizun would of course burst in, waking up, obviously startling Naruto, and yeah, though she'd end up kind of telling, somewhat Naruto, after Naruto would obviously end up getting fully dressed, or he was fully dressed, I'm not sure. So after getting fully dressed, he'd end up just as Shizuno would be, to obviously die out the window, she'd end up jerking her head backwards as the kunai would nearly, pretty much end her. And yeah. And of course from there, Dry obviously started to appear, telling them that she must have kind of drugged him, or at least somewhat with, and yeah. And of course from there they would end up heading out, and most of the fight would end up going like in canon. The part that would much more end up changing would be the somewhat changed, of course, his requiring both his hands, and one being currently occupied holding the kunai. He'd end up managing to form or at least the plus hand sign / X hand sign, whatever it's called, to form a shadow clone, and after someone forming it, he would, have his hand out and it would start to spin, producing the Rasengan, making it. And you'd somewhat realise if the Shadow Clone is, you could, if the Shadow Clone pretty much is offloaded with kind of rotation and somewhat compression, then he could obviously add in power a lot more than he can generally do with just his other hand. And so he would. And yeah, instead of the somewhat semi-transparent, or at least the almost nearly like glossy transparentness of the Rasengan in which he had managed to get stable, this one would be like, it would just be, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to see through it, it would just be blue. Yeah. Though, of course, this clone would end up dispelling and he would end up driving it into Kabuto. This one being a lot stronger than his cannon Rasengan, it would actually end up driving into Kabuto enough to cause some skin and blood to actually be flung outwards. And of course, though from there now to, of course, allow it to somewhat destabilize, blowing up and sending Kabuto flying backwards. Though of course I was now to let it destabilise, now to send Chakra into his feet to hopefully keep it stationary, in which it would. Kabuto would obviously be sent back and would be slammed into the boulder, of course, from there. Though it was also somewhat, of course, due to the fact that it was more powerful, it'd be more painful, and it'd be just enough painful that Kabuto would actually lose focus of, or at least would somewhat lose, or at least enough, it would lose enough chakra control due to the pain that he wouldn't be able to form the chakra scalpel, in which he of course used to damage Naruto's heart, which caused it to stop. And of course, though, Jiraiya would still end up, yelling at Naruto to get out of the way, to move, due to obviously Orochimaru. Naruto turned around to just see Orochimaru bang down on him with obviously a sword coming out of his mouth, and he'd be yelling mentally at his body to just, get your ass into gear, to move. But it simply wouldn't listen, though. He'd end up going, though he'd somewhat paralyze Tsunade, would end up getting in front of him, taking it through the heart. Though that simply wouldn't even bother her, as though he would end up, of course, pulling it out, and Tsunade would end up healing it. Now to be surprised, and from there the fight would go similarly like in canon, only difference now being Naruto would be consciously awake. Though after the fight, Tsunade would end up taking off her necklace, the first Hokage's necklace, and putting it around Naruto's head, kissing him on the forehead. And, though Naruto would end up kind of going, hey Barton, is it true? Are you really going to become the fifth Hokage? He's got, of course, Brat. I stay by my word. And though her eye was somewhat twitching at what he called her. And from there they would go back, though Jiraiya would end up telling Tsunade if she could have a look at Naruto. She'd ask why, as he seemed, a somewhat healthy child. He'd state that Naruto's skin shouldn't be looking that pale. That caused her to somewhat be slightly concerned, as he'd show her a picture of Naruto. That the fourth Kage given him. And, no, not fourth father Kage, fourth dad. Or somewhat. Obviously that would be the team, the Team 7 picture, and she'd be surprised at his actual skin tone and how it seemed different. yes, she'd somewhat nod, though she'd say that they'd have to do it back in Konoha. They would nod, and during the journey back to Konoha, Naruto was starting to figure out how to do it with one hand. Though by the time he'd get back to Konoha, he wouldn't be able to, though another week later, as it's about a week from when they returned. Yeah, though Tsunade, for one, or at least would be different. Tsunade hadn't kind of made anyone tuning yet. She hadn't looked over the the tuning exams yet, or at least somewhat now kind of currently somewhat was, or at least was kind of finalising her the potential to people she wanted promoted. Yeah, she'd pretty much had gone over through the entire, or at least all the Genin's reports, and pretty much Genin, and thus also somewhat Jonin. And yeah. Anyway, though of course most of her time was spent kind of trying to figure out what was going on with Naruto and why his skin colour was changing. That, and of course also somewhat Rock Lee, as she'd promised that she'd try and potentially find a way to give him a high chance of success rate of being able to fight again, and yeah. And anyway, though of course also of course due to her kind of more focus on trying Lee and kind of Naruto's somewhat Lee's kind of back situation with the bone or that bones, and Naruto's kind of similarly skin tone changing, and kind of wrapped her up in such a way where it had kind of had or at least had her interest for enough time that the two elders, Kaharu and the other one, not Don, sorry, though the other one, would end up of course asking Tsunade if she'd kind of went through the tuning exams yet, and yeah, she'd end up kind of shaking her head, saying that she kind of somewhat forgot. They would ask what would be so important, more important that she'd forget to do that, and she'd state, or at least one somewhat Lee, though she'd also said the main reason was more so Naruto. They would kind of look at her and would ask what was it, and she'd show the two elders a picture of Naruto. That picture being her, Shizune, Tonton, and of course Jiraiya all together. And yeah, both elders would be surprised, and they would state that Naruto's skin tone shouldn't be that colour. Should agree, as Naruto's skin tone was pretty much borderline creamy by that point. It had went from being tanned or somewhat light tanned to being like borderline creamy at this point. And of course, yeah, and for obviously Naruto, you wouldn't really kind of notice a differences. After all, if you spend every day so much kind of looking at his skin, you're not really going to notice a colour shift until you kind of look back on yourself and potentially realise, or you kind of see yourself in a picture and you realise then as well. Yeah, or somebody kind of points it out, which had happened a couple of times, though Naruto just kind of find it annoying that some people, well, mainly kind of some friends, mainly that yeah, some friends and I forgot his name now, Konohamaru and that. And yeah. Anyway, though, of course, it would end up showing also Konohamaru the Rasengan. And yeah. Also, another thing, or at least during that time, was, or at least now being back in the village, Dryer would kind of end up, or at least kind of telling Naruto that they should potentially, see just how powerful his other way was. It's somewhat pale though. Dryer would tell him to literally, how he should kind of do it so if it blows up, he doesn't lose Nam or his life. And would kind of nod at that and they'd stand some distance away. And yeah, the clone would end up doing that, and there's kind of, it would just be happily similarly spinning away, though John would see that it was all kind of spinning in a similar direction, though one thing, or at least though Naruto then, or at least had of course realised that he did, was that he'd ended up kind of moving the two, or at least the top layer kind of to intersect with the bottom, with the top being slightly slow enough so that they ended up colliding and causing it to blow up. Though this time around the clone had decided to switch the top layer around, so pretty much the rest was spinning clockwise whilst the top was spinning anti-clockwise, so it could keep the speed. But the only thing you'd have to do was lower its kind of circle, its radius, the radius of some, or at least it's kind of just change the outer orbit of the, say, chakra to intersect with the somewhat second, say, shell. And dried something to yell out to detonate it. It would, and the clone would immediately just disappear with a massive. They would kind of look at one another when just shockwave would should have crossed them. The ground would be hacked. There'd be a kind of a crater there, and they would kind of just stare at one another. Both had been shot back, and they would just stare at they would just kind of stare at one another. And Naruto had kind of unknowingly made a practical bomb, and the fox would somewhat realise that if Naruto kind of caused it to spin fast enough, he could potentially cause it to go under fusion. And there's fission and fusion. Fission is what nuclear reactors do. Pretty much they pretty much have a particle pretty much intercepts another particle, causing one particle to split off into two, and then those two hit another two particles, which then each single particle they just hit splits off into another two. So you go from one particle to 2 to 4, and then 8, 16, 32, and so on. Fusion, since you have two particles, or one particle that slams into another, or two that slam into one another at a high rate of speed, high enough that pretty much they overcome their repelling force, which kind of causes it to pretty much combine potentially fully together to make a whole new potential thing. In this case it would be chakra, and and of course that would end up releasing an even even more explosive energy. So yeah, if Naruto got it done fast enough, he'd pretty much make a fusion bomb. And yeah, though Naruto and Jiraiya, or at least Naruto ended up having kind of two names for it. Either the Rasengan bomb, or the kind of somewhat chaotically rotating, or at least the suicidal rotating bomb, or the kind of suicidal Rasengan bomb. And yeah, they kind of ended up deciding on the kind of suicidal rotating bomb. As well, yeah, suicidal as you did it, you'd be dead. Naruto, well, Dry could also do it. Well, you could also obviously have a Shadow Clone do it as well, but Naruto would be the least impacted, mainly due to his sheer volume of chakra. His volume of chakra reserves. It pretty much mean that it wouldn't actually do all that much negative to him to do a that jutsu. And yeah, and when Dryad ended up telling Tsunade about it, they kind of ended up, or at least Dryad ended up revealing, or at least to Naruto, what tailed beast ball, and that it was a tailed beast, or at least a tailed beast's ability. That they state that he didn't know how they did it, but a pretty much black sphere. And yeah, and it's that even a small ball, like a literal Sengon sized, could be massively damaging. And you'd say that had the potential, if he'd done it, if he got it down really well, or at least really efficiently with the speed and that, to be just as powerful as a tailed beast ball of the same size. And yeah, Naruto would be dumbfounded at that. And of course, the Fox would begrudgingly agree with Naruto. Understand that even though Dry didn't know what Naruto was kind of doing in the first layer, he did, and if Naruto could cause the entire thing to go into fusion, so each layer pretty much so pretty much the third and fourth and fifth and sixth layer, spinning, one spinning obviously clockwise, then anti-clock, and anti, so that when it kind of smashed together, though instead of doing it out from the outside obviously down, go from the inside outwards, that would cause more pressure obviously to build up, more potential for fusion and more explosive power, something they wouldn't really discover yet, as Naruto wouldn't exactly be playing around with an highly explosive A rank jutsu. So yeah, suicidal one at that, in which Tsunade pretty much immediately had obviously made it forbidden. But though she'd obviously told Naruto and obviously Dry that they could use it as long as it was Shadow Clone based, and yeah, they'd kind of just nod, and yeah. Though Dry kind of turned to Naruto and go, well, the nice thing about it, that is like, no dude, so anyone with Sharingan wouldn't be able to copy it, and yeah. Though Naruto would actually ask how it comes, and Dry would state, well, that the Sharingan only copied all these jutsus if they had hand signs, and that they had to see the full set of hand signs to be able to copy a jutsu. So if you even if you could do the jutsu with just missing out one hand sign, they couldn't copy your jutsu. And yeah, and thus it was impossible for them to copy the Rasengan, as the Rasengan was just pure, pretty much chakra shape and transformation to the practical near, or if not absolute limits. And yeah, so I had to be well tuned with that chakra to be able to even try and perform it, and I had to have a lot of chakra as well. And yeah. Anyway, though, of course. Yeah. Anyway, though, though at the very moment, Tsunade would end up would kind of look up. I should tell Umbu to go fetch. Well, no. At the very moment, Naruto and Sasuke would be on top of the roof of the hospital, with Sasuke going somewhat downwards and Naruto kind of coming upwards towards Sasuke. This was the hospital fight on the roof. Sakura would end up yelling out to stop. Yes, and yeah, Jiraiya would be thinking about potentially intervening due to the power. Well, yeah, the Rasengan was more powerful than the Chidori. Absolutely, Kakashi had stated that. And with how much power Naruto currently had attacked, he would probably, destroy Sasuke's hand. Though, luckily, Naruto would pull back enough power that it would actually go semi-transparent. And yeah, though Naruto obviously, wouldn't be able to move out of the way, so he had to keep the Rasengan going, otherwise he would, Sasuke would potentially end up causing damage to him, though Kakashi would end up arriving and fleeing this to either side. Though, as Naruto would rapidly see, a now water object thing, whatever, rapidly approaching, he would just send a load of chakra into the Rasengan, causing it to densify once more. The colour would darken, and it would just drill right, into it, causing, and I can count about 5 to 7% of it was blown out in the back. This time, around about 35 to 40% of the back of the water tower would be just gone. It would just be exploded from the sheer force of the Rasengan. And that's the thing, Naruto's Rasengan would still be weaker than Minato's one at the moment. And yeah, anyway, though, from that, yeah, of course, Kakashi would end up kind of, somewhat telling Sasuke kind of off, and yeah, though Sasuke wouldn't really pay too much attention and would jump over the fence doing a backflip, and of course landing underneath, feeling a drip. He would look up and he would be wide-eyed, and he would end up obviously hitting the wall, even more pissed than in canon, due to the fact that, well, that was 60 to 55% of a water tower left in Naruto's, whilst his was completely fine at the back. And yeah, and that's the thing, in the fight, of course, when Sakura yelled stop, obviously he'd seen Naruto's Rasengan jutsu thing seemingly kind of go transparent, and he'd, kind of mentally thought that Naruto didn't have good control over it, kind of trying to reassure his superiority over him. Of course, well, now we've seen it obviously wasn't true. Anyway, yeah, Gusto from there, Jiraiya obviously Kakashi tell Jiraiya that he should, talk to Naruto. Jiraiya end up agreeing, though I don't remember if Jiraiya ever actually told Naruto or had a chat with Naruto about that. I don't think he ever did he? I don't know. If you guys Otherwise do say, but I don't think he did. Anyway, though, of course, Kakashi would end up having to talk about, or at least that with Sasuke, and yeah, from there, well, yeah, that part would go like in canon, though. Kakashi should be doing that. Yeah, it'd be about around half an hour later, and when Naruto would arrive in the Hokage's office. Why? Well, because she called him. Not only him, though, she'd also called Asuma and Shikamaru, and yeah. Though Naruto would kind of look at, yeah, he'd kind of see in Asuma, he'd turn to Tsunade and he'd go, Bachan, why, if Asuma somewhat Sensei's here, why isn't, Kakashi Sensei here? She'd stand out and she'd go, you do know he's on a mission, right? He'd go, he's on a mission? Somewhat surprised, and she'd sigh, though she'd nod, and she'd somewhat explain to him that obviously due to kind of the current situation of Konoha, that he'd been sent out on a mission, though he'd just kind of nod, and yeah, from there, Naruto, those who'd end up kind of going, Genin, Naruto Uzumaki, and oh my god, and not Kiba, not Choji, and Shikamaru Nara. I hereby, as Asuma momentarily go wide-eyed before he'd end up kind of smiling, realizing what she was about to say, and she'd kind of smile at them as she'd go, I hereby promote you to Chunin. They would go wide-eyed, and Naruto would go, you're joking, right, Bachan? You're joking, right? She'd shake her head, no, Naruto, I'm serious. Though her eye was somewhat twitching, and yeah, though he'd end up getting tears in his eyes, and he'd end up pretty much bolting over the jumping over the desk, the Hokage's desk, and kind of cuddling into Tsunade, impacting her, causing the chair to actually tip back. And yeah, even though it'd hit the ground, though he'd still be kind of cuddling her and thanking her for the promotion to Chunin, and yeah. Because though Asuma wasn't all that surprised, after all, both Naruto and Shikamaru had both pretty much wanted to kind of, were both willing to sacrifice their lives to just, and Naruto obviously ended up killing them with, Shikamaru using his shadow possession jutsu, and yeah, though after that, and yeah, though of course she'd hand the two boys their Chunin flat jackets, though Naruto would end up asking if he could get any different colour. She'd slightly chuckle, though she'd shake her head, stating that was that he couldn't, as that was kind of official Chunin flat jacket. Naruto would kind of just somewhat slightly sigh, though he'd nod, though he'd ask if he'd have to wear it. She'd shake her head, stating that no, though he would have to keep it on his person at all times due to certain times in where he would have to prove his actual rank, and that would be a very easy way to prove that he was a Chunin. Naruto would kind of nod, though just as he was about to ask how he'd do so, she'd end up just throwing a somewhat scroll at him. He'd hit his forehead, though he'd grab it and he'd kind of glare at her, stating why was she throwing this at him. And yeah, she'd simply state that that was a storage scroll, and he could somewhat keep it and store his flat jacket in there. Nato would be somewhat surprised, and he'd kind of somewhat thank her, though he would kind of glare somewhat at her. And somewhat though, yeah. Though that was just obviously after he, after they kind of stopped cuddling and he returned back to the other side, she ended up getting the chair back up and sitting back down in it. Anyway, though, she'd also kind of state somewhat jokingly that, well, Nata, I never somewhat thought you'd be so kind of, so excited, so somewhat, you want to, jump me and, be on top of me. And yeah, Nata, Asma, Shikamaru pretty much would just block that out as he'd just kind of be mumbling about, that this was all just kind of troublesome, though he did have a small smile. Asma would then, of course, both were, still there, so Asma would very much hear it and would kind of chuckle, knowing, or at least hoping that the Hokage was kind of joking. That would go bright red and would try and, get somewhat to his voice and try and state something, though she'd end up bursting out laughing, and that would kind of glare at her. Yeah. Though Asma would kind of cough, and she'd get a slightly bit tinge of red as she somewhat forgot. Though she'd end up dismissing them, though they'd kind of lock eyes, and kind of similarly both Naruto and Tsunade would end up having an aura form around them, pretty much both looking at one another and pretty much downly, bring it on. And yeah. Anyway, though, from there, after a couple of seconds, Naruto would end up leaving. And, yeah, once he'd leave the Hokage Tower, he'd then kind of think, well, if Sensei, if Kakashi Sensei was gone, he could, show it to Jiraiya. So he would end up running, about Konoha trying to find him, and he would end up kind of straight up, just shooting straight past Jiraiya, as though Jiraiya would end up kind of catching Naruto by the somewhat back. Yeah, and that would kind of momentarily be, he'd have flung almost 90 degrees as he'd go from just seeing, the street to sky and then street again. And yeah, he'd end up kind of turning around going, what was the somewhat deal? He was about to kind of yell out at the person as Stride simply stated, why are you going in a hurry, Naruto? Why are you going in a hurry, Gachi, Naruto? Dry, I may, something. Dry, Naruto spoke so fast that Dry swore he'd heard Naruto come up with a whole new word. He'd presumed that Naruto had somehow kind of combined tuning and joining together. Chujode something, or something like that. Yeah, though he'd kind of put his hand up, which would quite Naruto, and he'd tell him to take a deep breath and to speak slowly and clearly. Naruto would end up repeating what he said, that he made tuning. So I'd go, but I don't see, and Naruto would pull open, well, he'd end up getting the scroll from his hip pouch, pulling storage scroll open and unsealing it. So I'd go, so you have, well done. And yeah, you'd end up kind of mentally making plans, and you'd end up telling Naruto to kind of come at this time, or at least some time at. Yeah, like today Naruto would kind of nod, and he'd ask why, though Dried kind of would somewhat tell him that he'd say then, well, no, that it would be somewhat a kind of celebration with him and somewhat Tsunade. Yeah, and that would kind of somewhat nod as, somehow, and that would kind of gotten both, or at least close to both of them, and Dried soon that Tsunade would want to be that, you know, not only to obviously somewhat celebrate, but also to, you know, see, you know, what a drunk Naruto was like. Yes, you know, with Naruto being a tuning now, he kind of wanted to kind of have Naruto's first drink with the two of them, and yeah. So ironically, time would go by, and it would of course be somewhat night, though early night, and they would end up kind of meeting up together, and yeah, of course, yeah. By now, obviously, Tsunade had dealt with what she's having to do with Lee now was check up on him, and yeah, though they would kind of walk in and Naruto would realise where they kind of were. Though when they'd somewhat order, obviously, somewhat drinks, or at least Dry would, yeah. Dry would end up telling him that that he'd be having his first kind of somewhat drink, and yeah, somehow throughout the night, Naruto and kind of, or at least the three kind of seemingly ended up divulging into a drinking contest who could seemingly drink the most, and well, yeah, to somewhat some surprise, Dry would be the first out, being kind of, well, yeah, just being passed out there, and Naruto and Tsunade would end up going to the point of where they would kind of get tipsy, and yeah, though eventually the place would end up kind of asking them to somewhat leave, as they wouldn't have much kind of drinks left for the other people, and yeah, Tsunade would begrudgingly do so, kind of taking Jiraiya's wallet and using the money in Jiraiya's wallet to pay for it. Though they would end up going back to the Hokage Tower, and yeah, with both kind of yeah. Though after a couple more bottles, both would be pretty much somewhat drunk by this point, with her kind of yeah, at least just before both of them would get drunk, she would end up kind of somewhat asking Naruto to kind of, or at least like to see this, you know, form of his that Jiraiya had mentioned, and Naruto had kind of somewhat nodded, and so Naruto pretty much spent the rest of the night in the form in which he'd kind of trained in, like during the 1 month, in the 1 month between the Forest of Death and the obviously last part of the tuning exams, with obviously Jiraiya, and yeah, though both would end up of course passing out, and hours later Sakura would end up of course bursting somewhat in with tears, and you know, kind of yelling out, or obviously Tsunade to be thrown into a light, and yeah, of course, and yeah, though that's how I'm going to end this part here, guys. So if you have enjoyed this part, do tell me in the comments down below, and of course if you want part 5, do also say, and yeah, guys. Anyway, hope you guys have a good day or night, turn on or wherever you are and whenever you watch this. Also, as I've said, do tell me if I'm somewhat the clarity in my voice. Like, can you understand me a lot better now? Can you, can't you? And yeah, anyway, hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are and whenever you watch this, and a good bye.